It's on the engine stand, and it's on wheels. I can move it around. This is fantastic. This is the back of this thing. So this frame and the adapter ring are something that I have made and sold for years. I still sell the adapter rings. These frames, the H frames, haven't been available for a really long time. This is my only one. And I had to update the legs. Some of the parts I had weren't even compatible, so there are some things I had to do to it. And I still need to add the oil tank arm. I don't even have that anymore. So I'm cobbling it together, but yeah, this is an engine stand that I used to sell on Pelican Parts, used to ship it all over the world. This is the part I had to extend today because this one's a little higher than the previous one. And also, I think I'm going to add a brace here in the corner. This is a heavier engine than I've had before, and this is starting to lean in a little bit, so I do think it needs a little more support down there by the wheel. But it's certainly good. It's not going to go too far. It's pretty sturdy. You can see this bar here will flex a little bit. That's how it flexes in the car too, so nothing surprising there. It's just a really compact, easy to use in my garage because I just don't have a lot of space in here. So that was the big motivation to get this on the stand. Get some more room in the garage, make it mobile, find out what we need to make this thing run. This will run on the stand. There's an adapter here where the starter goes. So before I put the starter on, I was gonna get a weight of the engine. I'd like to kind of know how much this engine weighs, just out of curiosity. Okay, to check the weight, I got this crane scale from Anvil. This is just from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below, but it's basically like an old school fish scale. You know, it reads in pounds and it goes, I think, up to 2,000 pounds. So hopefully the engine's not that heavy. I know it's a lot lighter than that, but let's probably have to do one side at a time and then add the measurements together. Actually, there's a remote here. You can just do 0 on this. So 0. Okay, I'm getting 305 pounds here off of the front. That's just the front. And the wheels here are just off the ground. And it's, you know, supported on my lift. So let's record that number. We'll measure the rear. That's a lot of weight. And this side, I'm getting 320.4 pounds. Okay, that's about 100 pounds more than I expected. I got 629, although if you subtract out the weight of the engine stand, which is 55 pounds, gives 574. And I thought these engines were a little closer to 450, so maybe I'm doing something wrong. It's basically picking it up on this end. And then on this side over here, I wasn't picking it up on the very end. It's picking it up a little bit in the middle, but there's not much weight outside of that other than the muffler. So I think that's what's maybe throwing it off a little bit. Let me know what's going on. Like I said, mounting the starter is pretty straightforward. So. Okay, that's on there and real secure. See how it clears the heat exchangers and all this stuff here. This is the wiring that's going to go right to the starter, and it looks as if it's got some splicing in it. Sometimes this stuff, well, yeah, didn't take much to pull that off, and you can see how there's some corrosion right there. This is why I don't like these auto parts store crimpers. They're not that strong, and they're not hermetically sealed, so you get corrosion in there. This could potentially leave you stranded someday if you don't get enough power to your solenoid. So I'm going to replace that wire with a better one and also the right color. This is red, should be yellow. Just clean that a little bit. Maybe I'll clean this one too while I'm here. That's just distilled white vinegar and a little bit of salt, and that seems to do the trick on copper. Plus a little bit of wire brush just speeds it up. Okay, the reason why these open barrel crimps work better, because they actually, the way the crimper works, it actually drives the ferrule into the wire. So it embeds itself right into there. No way. And then this heat shrink has adhesive in it, so it actually glues this hermetically sealed, so you'll never get corrosion in there again, hopefully. Okay, I need the correct jam nut for that, but you know, we're just getting closer. This engine's just so much easier to work on now. I just keep finding little things that probably should be cleaned up a little bit. I know I want to get this engine running as soon as I can, but I'm not going to be able to do it tonight, so few little things like this is driving me nuts, how that's not round anymore. I'm just that way. But overall, this engine is a runner, came out of a running car, so I'm hopeful that it's going to be okay. That wire needs to be looked into. I'm not sure why it's sticking out like that and been cut. I have the wire harness from the factory. It's going to connect to all these connectors here. Everything should kind of plug and play. And I've already done some research on how to get the ECU powered, so we'll get that connected here pretty soon too. That looks a little suspect as well. I'm not sure if that's for the air conditioning maybe, or just supposed to go to that sensor right there. Oops, found another wire that's been mangled. This one's coming off that same harness. Probably goes down to the transmission. Maybe it's the reverse light switch or something to do with that, but you can see how it's been kind of cut and spliced in multiple places. So probably fix that. I'll just put some tape on it so I remember to come back to it. So it's a dry sump engine, of course. It means there's an oil tank suspended somewhere out here, normally in the fender of the car. And the oil is stored in the tank, and then it gets pulled through the engine as needed and circulated through a bunch of stuff, even a cooler all the way to the front of the car. So even though it's an air-cooled engine, should be easy to run on a stand, it's actually got a fair amount of oil cooling as well. And so we need to get the oiling sorted out before we even crank it. And this is what that oil tank looks like. This is the one that comes right out of the car. And it does have a sender unit inside. That's what displays the oil level on the gauge in the instrument cluster. So this needs to be supported, you know, in the car it would be sort of back here, right about like that. And then there's a hose that goes, well, here's one of the hoses right here. Small hose here, and then another hose from here to there. I'll look at the schematic diagram for the oiling in the workshop manual, but I need to come up with a mount that supports this just about here, like it would be in the car. And in the past, this arm on this engine stand right here had some U-bolts on it that had a big arm that came out and supported this, just hanging it with some chains. So I may have to remake that piece or do something similar. Yeah, the oil tank is kind of floating in midair right now. It's definitely hanging on this new piece I added. And this is just electrical conduit, super cheap. I did make it removable here because I need this to collapse. So depending on where the oil lines are situated, when I move this around the garage, I may need to take these bolts out and slide this whole thing in just to save space. But the oil lines are gonna dictate kind of where the oil tank is. It probably needs to come down just a little bit, so I'll hang it with some chains instead of some paracord. But eventually I will get this in the right position with all the oil lines attached. I need to go look for the oil lines because I'm not so certain where they are right now. I do believe I have them. It doesn't look like I got a whole lot done today, but actually I had to do a little bit of fabrication off camera to get the engine stand where it is today. This used to be a standard product for me, but it took a little while to resurrect it, to use it for my own use. I had the H-frame built, it was in storage, but I had to make the legs and the uprights and stuff, and it took a little bit of time. And really, I'm happy to get this thing off the pallet, which I kept tripping over, and now it's mobile, it's on wheels. With the jack, I can move it around single-handedly with anywhere in the garage. But obviously the goal is to do a lot of diagnostics on this engine, health check on the engine, well before it goes in my car, or actually Benji's car. So that's what's coming up next. I need to figure out some fuel fittings, the fuel pump, and the ECU connections. So I'll be doing more research on that and hopefully get back to this in a week or two so you can hear it run. Thanks for staying tuned, and we'll see you next week.